playing Dub Conscious in the background. Adrian Zelski, HGHC. Come on the show, Adrian. Live from the Mighty Veedverks Airship, I'm Travis Lippert, CEO of Verks Unlimited Limited, better known as Veedverks.
And I'm Julie Richardson, Director of Commercialization and Promotions. And today we have with us very special Canna fam and wonderful, wonderful friend, Bridgett Seritt. Thank you so much for coming up. And I've been wanting you to do this for so long now.
I'm excited to be here. Excited and honored.
You do a lot of important work. We were discussing it's when you can and how you can and the way you can, and it's a good example of what we tell everybody when they come in here, that they have these high hopes of, oh, I'm going to get in the industry and I'm going to be a bud tender or come out with the latest greatest. Come out here and be you. And that's what you're doing. You have a background in psychology. You were able to look at this from a science aspect and in social study type of aspect, and how we work in groups. And so you've been able to put some teachings together that are very, I don't want to say basic, but let's say ground floor.
Yes, it's introductory.
I like that. I like that because we live in such a bubble here. There's some ignorance in Colorado. Some I still run into. But it's not to the degree it is in Georgia, where you're from, or South Louisiana, where I'm from.
Correct.
Where it's the big bad boogeyman.
Oh yes, reefer madness is alive and well.
It really is.
Yes,
it really is. And we're out here and making our children just smoke these joints.
Oh, I know. We're giving them away as Halloween candy.
Yes. And that's probably one of my favorite ones.
I know. I'm like, who's giving edibles away?
That stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
And, if you think a bag of Hershey candy is a lot of money, try a bag of edibles.
Oh, my. Yes. No one's giving those away to children.
No. We got to love you for that.
I mean, really love you.
Yeah.
Edibles are mine.
Yeah.
I'm not giving them away.
There are kids who need to take edibles.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And in Douglas County, there are kids who are not able to take the cannabis-based medicine that they need to school.
Oh, absolutely.
And I would like to remind people that #IStandWithBen and thegreencrayancampaign.com.
Yes.
If you go there, you can download letterhead. And you can write on it a letter to the superintendent of the Douglas County School District and tell him that, look, there's a kid named Ben Juan who needs to be able to take his Canatol RX to school. Nasal spray.
That's what we're
his
talking
rescue
about.
medication.
Nasal spray.
He needs to be able to take that to school. And there's a girl named Marley who needs to be able to medicate properly at school. And
she takes a capsule.
So
for her Crohn's disease.
The Green Crayon campaign, you're being encouraged to send green crayons to the superintendent and tell him that every one of these crayons is a story about a kid who matters, and all they need is their rescue meds, and they're just maintenance meds so that they can go to school like normal kids. You give them Adderall, you give them EpiPens.
Yep.
Just let them take these safe medications that are effective for their conditions and let them go to school like normal kids. So thegreencrayancampaign.com and #IStandWithBen.
And call Governor Polis's office, because what really needs to happen is an executive order.
Yes.
And all you have to say, you'll get an answering machine and you say, I stand with Ben Juan. And he's gotten enough emails by this time, messages off of his social media.
Yes.
They've heard from us. So they're keeping a tally, and our voices are powerful when we join together.
Yes, and no school districts in Colorado allow for the law to be implemented because the law was permissive. And so we're still fighting this in every single school district here in Colorado, not just Douglas County. So not only support the Douglas County, but start your own Green Crayon campaign.
Right.
Because once we get a few school districts on board, the rest will come. And, you know, Douglas County hopefully will be one of the first, but I'm sending information up to Eagle County this next week. So
Amber brought up a really good point. Her children were in school when a sister school, a STEM shooting happened.
yes.
Had that been Ben's school, one of the things with epilepsy is when you're under a lot of stress, that can lower your seizure threshold.
Yes.
Shock, sudden, instant things that happen that are shocking, or trauma to the body of any type like that will cause you to have a seizure.
Absolutely.
Ben Juan did not have a rescue med in that school.
No. That to me is a liability.
And it could have been on lockdown. That is a serious liability for, if he had a bee allergy, his EpiPen would be in there.
Yes.
If he had any type of cardiovascular, his rescue would be in there. That child has to go through stressful situations. And with epilepsy, it could be a matter of, he could get a mild temperature.
Yes.
You never know what the stress is on the body that can initiate a seizure. But he has to go to school with no rescue med, and that's just not acceptable.
That's not right, Colorado.
No, you're going to end up with dead children.
Yeah,
because they don't have the rescue meds.
Or brain.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Or damage, because it only takes minutes, and I know what I'm talking about. I have epilepsy and have children with epilepsy.
Yep.
So you have minutes. Minutes.
Yes.
And if you're on lockdown, 911's not coming in.
No, not at all. And to me, no school has lost federal funding, so that's just like a bogus argument to be used. But you're preventing children from life-saving medication, and that to me is a huge liability.
Well, what about the ADA?
Yep.
What about Children with Disabilities Act? All of that.
All of it.
You want to talk about the federal issues? Let's talk about their violations of those children's rights.
Yes.
Let's start there.
Exactly.
And I know when you go in for an IEP, if you have a child with any type of disability whatsoever, you get handed a paperback book of your children's federal rights, you know, with that disability.
Yep.
And, buddy, let's have that conversation.
I stand with Ben.
I stand with Ben, too.
I stand with Ben as well.
And both his parents and all of the families.
All of the school children who need this.
Yes. We need to do a little shout out to
Be Good.
To Be Good.
BeGoodMMJ.com, I believe.
Yes.
Hopefully I've got that right.
They have generously come on board with us, and they are our month's sponsor of our green room. They, our guests will have water with a coupon on it. They sent us a generous amount of llama pre-rolls to enjoy with our guests.
They're awesome pre-rolls.
Yes.
The difference, I'm sure there are other companies that do it this well, but the difference between these pre-rolls and a typical pre-roll is that they make them from the little buds that are cut off, that are kind of, I guess, rejected as part of the trimming part from llama. And so it's the pre-rolls are made up of buds, not shake, not trim. And I think it makes a big difference.
It does make a big difference.
So they're great pre-rolls. Thanks so much to Be Good. Guys, check them out. They're good people.
And they have 4 locations. Federal Heights, North Glen, Wash Park, and Inglewood.
And Wash Park is med only. Yeah, check them out. They're good people.
The one
like
in
you
Thornton
get to know people
is,
over time in this industry, and I like Be Good.
Yeah.
Like they're cool people.
They are cool people.
That's hard to find.
Yeah.
Support the good people businesses.
Yeah. Yeah, they really do cool things. Starting with boom.
Yeah.
Sponsoring our green room. So thank you to Be Good.
And if you have a favorite dispensary that would like to be a green room sponsor, let us know. We'll be happy to talk to them.
Yep.
But they got to be as good as Be Good.
Yeah.
They got to be
They've set the
good.
bar pretty high.
Yeah, yeah. So let's get back to talking about you. and
Because
the
it's all about
organization.
me.
Yes, because
It's all
look,
about
okay,
you.
so this is how the day went when I called you. You had posted your article that you had just written,
Mhm.
and we were all so excited. And I was skimming through it, and what I didn't realize is Travis was also reading it at the same time. And so he comes out and he walks up to my desk and he goes, "We need to get Bridgett on here." He goes, "I just read that article. It is spot on. Can you arrange that?" And I said, "I will be happy to arrange that."
I was like,
So,
"Oh,
and
that is so sweet."
I would have come to the Springs and got you personally and brought you back. But very, very thoughtful, very complete, and it answered a lot of questions that we
Yes.
get every day.
So the article is 5 surprising things I learned about using CBD therapeutically, and it's on themighty.com.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And did I see that it got republished somewhere too?
On their, they've highlighted it on 2 of their main Facebook pages.
Yeah.
So it's had an audience of over 100,000 now.
Well, let's keep getting that out there. I posted a link to the article in the description, and could we walk through it? Could you tell us the 5. This isn't clickbait. It's like a real, very informative article, and it succinctly breaks down many of the problems that we see in the industry as well.
Yes.
So.
There were a lot of there's always a lot of good propaganda and stuff out there about, CBD does this or it helps with that. But when you get into some of the nitty-gritty things, those things have been glossed over. And I think the first thing on there is probably drug interactions.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I see glossed over more than anything. And because of the prolific CYP450 interaction, it interacts with almost every pharmaceutical out there.
That's how you say it, CYP450.
Yep.
CYP, the
CYP450 is CYP450.
Yeah, CYP450 metabolic pathway through the liver.
Yep. And CBD interacts more prolifically than THC, so it actually has more drug interactions to watch for. So if you have children who are on anti-epileptic drugs or heart medications and things like that, it could do a couple things to them. It could create a toxicity, it could make them weaker, or it could make them incredibly stronger. And so you don't know which interaction it is until you check. And it's very important because we actually have had pediatric patients end up in the hospital with liver toxicities because they were taking a whole bunch of like Keppra or a whole bunch of other stuff at the same time as they were taking CBD. They weren't spacing it out. They didn't know about the drug interactions. They never checked, and they just assumed that, it's from a plant, so it's harmless. Oh, ricin's also from a plant, and that'll kill lots of people.
Right.
So, you have to be careful. Part of the reason it works is because it interacts with our body. And an interaction, most people will take that in a very negative connotation, but an interaction just means it interacts in the body. It's not a positive or negative thing, and the interactions are actually how we get off a lot of the pharmaceuticals.
Right.
We want them.
Well, things like Keppra and Ritalin and these, that takes a different direction, different pathway in the brain, whereas cannabis does a different thing. And so when you're taking them both at the same time, the body doesn't know which one to use. If that makes sense and follows along. And it's way more than if you're on any of these, not to drink grapefruit juice.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
that's
way more serious.
So people gloss over it and call it the grapefruit interaction.
Yes,
So,
and that's what was very alarming to me, because grapefruit only interacts with like 32 different things, and in a minor scale, whereas CBD, it interacts with hundreds of drugs, either through the liver interaction or through some of the other functions that it does. And it's a good thing that it does that, because that means you can take less of the medication or get off the medication, but it can create a toxicity because it can stop and disable that CYP function, and you can't metabolize the medication anymore.
Right.
So,
well, that's why it's so important to go to a doctor that hasn't just heard about it, or it's important that you go to a cannabis doctor that really cares about the science. And or at least get on a consultation with one of the nurses, or
somebody who's actually studied cannabis, rather than just glossing over some trendy article and being like, oh, here, I'm going to start selling CBD now. I've seen doctors' offices selling it, and it's like, no.
Like they're unbranded, they're white labeled.
They're either white labeled or they're working through an MLM, like Zillis or Hempworks or something like that. And it's like, no, you don't want to do this. Yeah. And they're not telling anybody. So it's...
Well, I think it's very irresponsible for a doctor in Colorado not to know.
Yes.
Because there's so many people that are coming here for answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I did this myself. You have the assumption
Mm-hmm.
that everybody understands it and knows it out here because it's Colorado,
Yep.
and that's not really true.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of really good doctors, yes. And there's also a lot of really good doctors that want to know more.
Yes.
But because of their employment and legislation and where it is
Mm-hmm.
now, they are unable to use it themselves and experience it and really get a good understanding.
And some are
of it.
even prevented from learning about it because
Yeah.
their practice, whatever practice they're with, whatever hospital they're with, they actually have a policy against it.
Oh, yeah.
And so none of our doctors have the ability to learn about it. That in itself is just a threat to what they're doing. So
My doctor was afraid to watch or look me up online on her office system.
mm-hmm.
She goes, well, I waited till I got home and looked you up. I don't know. I just get tickled because I'm like, oh, so scary, Julie Richardson.
I know.
Here we are, rebels from the South, and getting that devil lettuce. And
I know. And it's very threatening for the physicians. You know, they're in limbo with their licenses. They don't want to lose their licenses. And that's an understandable thing, you know, it really is. So hopefully we can make it to where they won't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're really pushing this legislation this next year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I would absolutely adore the thought of my doctor being a patient.
Oh, yes.
I wish all the cops were patients.
Yeah.
Can we put that in there?
Yeah, that would be nice.
In the legislation that we try and get done next year. CBD for cops.
Right?
That's a good idea.
Yes.
Because when you talk to them here, and I don't know too many cops, what would you rather do? Go investigate the smell of marijuana somewhere, or would you rather go break up a bar fight?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, if I were a cop, I'd rather go investigate the smell of marijuana.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're not violent people if we're in a legal state doing things like we're supposed to, and
mm-hmm.
We don't think any harm, no foul. No longer the evil black market.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they'll tell you straight up, we're a lot easier to deal with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have Park County on recording saying that, yeah, we'll go into these cannabis grows, but it's not like they're cartel. It's not. These aren't dangerous things, and they're telling people that at a conference, that it's a completely different thing. You're not walking into a heavily armed cartel grow. You're walking into some neighbor's tomato garden for the most part, and that's about the gist of it.
Yeah, and the grows, the commercial ones, you walk in and everything is aerated and bright, and nobody has a weapon. They're dressed in Tyvek.
Yeah.
And it's pretty shocking to imagine. I know it was shocking for me as a consumer coming out here and seeing it. Do you remember the first time you ever saw a commercial grow?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It was. Was it the Harvest Company or something like that? I took my420tours.com back in 2014. I stayed for I think 6 days. There was a floor at the Crown Plaza Hotel that they would let you use vaporizers.
Oh, nice.
Tabletop. In the maitre d' or whatever, the concierge at the hotel would give you a Silver Surfer vaporizer.
Oh, nice.
It was so I stayed there for 6 days and toured my first commercial grow. I couldn't believe it. It was in an old storage facility.
Wow.
And everything was on wheels, and it was just high tech stuff.
It's not what you expect.
No,
not at all.
No. Number 2, CBD is legal in all states.
Oh yes, that's another myth that we have, is that the Farm Bill just magically made CBD legal, and it didn't. It did a couple things at the federal level, but it also, further down in the bill, there's a nice little FD&C clause where any previous rulings for CBD or any of the cannabinoids stay with whatever that ruling is, so it preserved those. But there's also the states clause. And so basically you have to opt in to CBD legalization.
Mhm.
Most people don't realize that there's a federal Controlled Substance Act, and then there's the state Controlled Substance Act. And you have to remove CBD specifically and preserve it in both. So if your state has not done that, it's not technically legal in your state. So they have to remove it from the Controlled Substance
Has
Act.
Colorado done that?
Hemp, yes. Yes, we're good. Colorado treats CBD like a naturally occurring food, constituent in hemp food.
Like
So,
they ought to.
yes, and so we can have infused anything here. I mean, I think, who was it that Carl Jr. did the infused
Yeah.
cheeseburger for
Yes.
a day? You know, so we can do that legally here in Colorado. We have state protection,
Mhm.
but we don't have federal protection to do that, because if your state hasn't done that, it defaults over to that FD&C clause, and that means that Epidiolex owns CBD
Mhm.
right now, and the FDA classified it as an active pharmaceutical. So the states, it's really nice, about half of them have pulled it off their CSA,
Mhm.
because there's, I mean, people are buying CBD in gas stations and all of these ridiculous places, and so it's so prolific they can't enforce it, and so they're taking it off their CSAs.
Keep going, guys.
Exactly. Keep doing it.
Keep doing it.
Yes. But so far only half the states have done that. And so if your state protects you, then you're good. Otherwise, you're kind of walking iffy territory there.
Right. We have a salesperson that lives right on the state line of Ohio, whereas he has to have a medical card to even
Yep.
talk about it and go talk to any, heaven forbid. Whereas he can go 20 miles across a river and go to another state,
Mhm.
and he can sell it all day long
Oh, yeah.
and rep there all day long. And
Yep.
that's ridiculous to require a medical program for CBD.
Yeah, I mean, it's got one of the single best safety profiles I've ever seen, ever, for anything. I mean, better than water at this point. And it's like, really? Are you saying that we're not adult enough to be able to use this properly?
Right.
I mean, how is somebody going to abuse CBD?
Well, we can flip it back. We can go, okay, well, didn't you just say that it could be dangerous and it had counteractions? Well, so does aspirin.
Yeah.
So does Tylenol.
Yep.
And these things can destroy your liver as well.
Oh, yes.
Horribly.
Yes. Caffeine.
Caffeine is another one.
Yep.
All of these, it has
still
to do
safer
with,
than all of those.
you have to think of yourself and your others. Are we intelligent enough to make these decisions for ourselves?
Correct.
And do we need to be constantly reminded? Okay, so if we have to take that off, are we going to outlaw grapefruit next?
Exactly.
How ridiculous
there
that
you
is.
go. Controlled
Yeah.
grapefruit.
Yeah.
Controlled substance there.
Yeah.
Like, really?
We have
Yeah.
to control grapefruit because it has,
Yeah.
30-something interactions with medication.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody might eat grapefruit, but still, would it kill them? Are we talking life-threatening interactions?
Not really. I mean, it does interact with heart medication. So if you have a heart issue,
Then yes.
then yeah, it can certainly do that. But the thing is, I can go buy an energy drink in a store that's going to interact with my heart and my
Yes.
medications. Am I adult enough to be able to choose? Am I going to drink this caffeine knowing that I could have a heart attack, or am I going to pass it up? And 9 times out of 10, the adult will pass it up. We don't need our hands held. We actually need the government to just kind of let go a little bit, because it's a little too helicopter parent.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot helicopter parent.
And I'll bring up again the idea of CBD infused oatmeal cookies. And if you can make like CBD oatmeal infused cookies and ship them to all 50 states, that's going to require buying oats that come from where all of your regular oats come from. And you're never going to pass the residual pesticide test on it if it's got CBD in it, because not because of the CBD, but because of the oats. And like, real quick shout out to Botanicor. Boom. Thank you. the Botanicor is, Gwethlin just saw on their website today, they're now doing heavy metal and some other tests that we've been waiting for.
Oh, I love it. Good.
So now a lot of it, now all of the things are necessary, I believe, to be able to show people that this doesn't have any bad stuff in it, period.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put it in oatmeal cookies, I highly doubt you can pass that test if you're just using regular oatmeal. So when we, finally have QR codes on all of these products that link to all of these lab tests, then I hope that in some way that bleeds over into the regular food industry.
Mm-hmm.
If I just take oatmeal cookies from the store and sprinkle CBD on them, and then, I don't know, bake them or maybe pre-baked cookies.
Yeah.
And make a terrible product, but go send that to get testing. It's going to be so much more regulated than if I didn't put CBD on it.
Yep.
And
I'm hoping it improves the organic qualifications.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be so much pushback.
Yeah,
if they had to test our ketchup like they test our CBD products,
mm-hmm.
I mean,
or
that would be very disruptive.
Or cereals. Oh, heavens, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the grains.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Test
anything that's grown using lots of Roundup and chemicals and all of that.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking to a scientist yesterday and talking about how the plant is so good for cleaning up all of that. There's so many farmers that are buying property here and investing, and they're not taking into consideration, well, there was a nuclear weapons testing area.
Yeah, guess what's going to be in your product at that point? Yeah.
There was a lot of really bad things that went on in Colorado 30 years ago. We're not even that long ago, as far as the soil contamination that people aren't talking about anymore because it's not going on anymore. But there's still health implications, and it's
we have all the PFAS stuff happening right now.
Oh, yeah.
And anywhere
PFAS?
That's the fire foam. And so we found out that Fountain, Colorado, their water supply is contaminated with all of this PFAS. And the EPA came out and did blood testing, and people's levels were so much higher than the allowed rate
In Fountain.
And it was coming from the Air Force bases. And then they just tested the Academy's wells, and the Academy's wells are now tainted with PFAS. And it's a cancer-causing agent. And we just there was just legislation just this last year to ban it. So there's a lot of stuff in our ground that doesn't get talked about.
Oh yeah.
So it's a good idea to make sure you have clean soil.
Yeah.
You're growing hemp.
And if you're going to grow it, there's a lot of organic soil they love to truck in.
Yep.
And that would be the safest way to do it. And if you're going to
truck in organic soil, explain. Like from where?
Shoot, I used to buy, just for my garden at home, I used to buy soil by the yard. You can buy them from big nurseries.
Yeah.
Buy organic soil.
I don't know. They sell, or I haven't bought home fertilizer in a long time, but they used to sell Milorganite, which was like people in Milwaukee's crap, and put it in bags and sell it in Texas.
Yep.
And I heard something on NPR about like what to do with all of New York City's waste, and they were shipping it to, I think by train, to some farms in like eastern Colorado. And I was thinking, I hope you don't grow hemp out of New York's crap.
Oh yeah.
I mean, do you think that they get all of those drugs? And I don't know how organic any of that stuff is.
I don't know how organic anything is anymore.
Yeah.
There's been so much contamination, and we're going on at least 70 years of having these chemicals being used in farming before anybody even knew anything was wrong. Not only that, we've had all these like nuclear development sites and training with fire foam and just all of these different things. So, I think a couple of years ago, Canyon City had uranium in their water supply.
Uranium. Yeah. In that Rocky Flats. Or is it Rocky Flats?
Rocky.
Rocky Flats.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they found the plutonium.
Oh yeah.
They
Yeah.
did
And
not
that
that
soil, they had somebody talking about that last week on the news. They're not sure if they want to open the open space because the soil is still testing hot.
Oh yeah. South Park actually sits on one of the nation's largest uranium reserves.
Really?
Yep. And they had opened up commenting for public comment. They had a period of time a couple of years ago where they were considering opening up mining and mining rights. I don't think anything ever came of it, but that's one of the things they talked about is we have the largest uranium deposits. That's why it's a national, heritage area. It's preserved. But they were considering opening up the mining rights.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Fracking scares me, and that's huge here.
Yep.
Speaking of testing hot, point 3 that you make here is that you can fail a drug test even with the CBD isolate.
Yes. Oh, I get so many arguments about that. No, we show that we have 0 THC in there, and I'm like, the technology's not there yet. You have a tolerance, and they can say they have THC free or 0% THC, but you can register, 0.00006, and it's still THC in there, but you can still call it an isolate and have it be THC free.
Right.
And you can actually fail a drug test. And that's happened. We know a couple people who have lost a couple benefits from that, and housing, and a couple people who have lost jobs because they work for the federal government and they're not supposed to take any of it. And so I've gotten into the habit of writing a company when they say, okay, my product is THC free, and their sales reps are arguing with me. I'll write directly to the company and say, I work for the federal government. I live here. Can I take your isolate? And I'll always get back, please don't take any CBD products whatsoever. So somewhere the companies are supposed to have a disclaimer, and it's never there, or it's in some really obscure spot, like underneath somebody's bio that you would never look at, or just some weird place. But they're telling their sales reps and whatnot that, oh, it's totally fine. You'll pass a drug test. You're not going to lose pain management. You're not going to lose, your job or anything like that. And then all of a sudden the person tests hot. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
So you can, and that's with an isolate.
That's with
and
isolate.
then imagine with something made from a distillate or a crude.
Oh yeah, you're definitely
just keeps it under the 0.3%. If you take an accurate enough test,
yes,
then you could fail that test. We're a good case in point for that because of our NASCAR goings on. Like Botanicor previously mentioned, they test cannabinoids out to 2 decimal places, and so we have 0.00% THC. But then you send that same thing to SMRTL in Utah, NASCAR's urinalysis lab, it comes back with 0.00065% THC. So it's all a matter of how many zeros do these people's machines go up to.
exactly.
When I go to King Supers, owned by Kroger's, they have a cardboard display in every one I've been to in the last couple of months that's chock full of CBD products, and they all have QR codes on them. And when you zap the QR code, the lab test comes back and it says THC ND, non-detectable.
Yep.
But the question is, detectable by what means?
What standards?
Yeah.
Yes.
So like NASCAR told us that we needed to come back with 0%. And so, they tested this out to 5 decimal places. I asked the director of the lab to reissue the report with the reportable quantity of 0. Like, is it or is it not 0? And got radio silence. They're going to make us fight it out with our lawyers. Ain't nobody got time for that, NASCAR. Check out the PGA.
Yep.
It's not seen nearly that kind of hassle. But yeah, that's an extremely low testing THC level from this batch of lotion. But it's not 0.
It's not completely 0, and over time that'll build up. I mean, cannabinoids are lipophilic, and they attach to your fat cells. They're much harder to get rid of, and eventually you're going to build that up, and you could fail a drug test. And like you said, it depends on who's testing you and what they're looking for, and they can find it.
in your body and how your body processes
Yes.
it, and
Oh,
your
absolutely.
body fat. And,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Hard facts, folks.
Yeah.
That's the truth, though.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and
It is.
Across the entire, we all need to just talk this out and deal with these problems in the
Yes.
open and eliminate all these testing standards for these people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially when it comes to CBD.
Yep.
All of that. It's you just wonder what the point of everything is, and then you see, of course, oh, these companies want money, but is it realistic? Is it logical? No. The stuff we're having to deal with.
So number 4 is, it is illegal to give a minor CBD unless you are following state law.
Yes, that's another big thing that I see. I'm a part of a lot of different patient groups and whatnot, and every now and again you'll see somebody say, I get a call from CPS and I'm only using CBD, or I told my doctor I was using CBD and they're not okay with that, and they said now they have to report me. And they didn't realize that it's only really adult use that was legalized, and it's still kind of iffy.
Even from hemp, though?
Even from hemp. It's even isolate can be reported, and that's part of taking it off the CSA. But hemp has 0.3% THC.
Mm-hmm.
THC is on every CSA in the union, including the federal. So if you use anything other than CBD.
But the 2018 Farm Bill said cannabis sativa L with less than 0.3% delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol on dry weight basis, including all of its extracts, cannabinoids.
Yep.
So cannabinoids.
Until you go down to that nice little FD&C clause, and that kind of overrules the deschedule clause a little bit. And so what that did is it said, yes, we're going to deschedule all of these cannabinoids, but if there were any previous studies on them or any previous rulings on them whatsoever, those stand, and that overrides this, and we're going to protect all of that. So when Epidiolex got their FDA approval as a pharmaceutical product, at that point CBD was classified as a drug product and not a food, even though it's been used as a food for thousands and thousands of years, and that should override all of it, but it didn't. And so it's that FD&C clause that's kind of the tricky thing there. And because it was classified by the FDA as a drug product, they can report you for drugging your child, even if the state has legalized hemp CBD.
Jury nullification is all I can say.
Yes. And fight to make it very clear that this is legal for use in adults and minors. There's not a single state who has cleared it for use in minors very clearly. So it's a gray area. And what's happening is people who are anti-cannabis or whatever whim the schools or the doctors feel, they're just kind of floating with that. And so parents are still getting harassed for CBD and CBD isolate. And that shouldn't be the case. It should have descheduled it for everybody rather than just leave this gray area of nothingness for us to kind of muddle through.
Right.
That's where we fight for our rights, is in that gray area.
Yeah.
Like GW's got their chunk of it, their $32,500 a year gram
CBD.
a day of CBD. By the way, that's a lot of CBD, GW. It's really a lot. But yeah, we have to keep fighting in this gray area.
And it's so hard. I was telling you about my grandson, and he takes a dose of ADD medicine so much that he would zone out, and I would argue, oh, that's too much medicine, that's too much. Had I been his grandmother in this time, and we're starting out, that would be the first thing I'd want to try.
Exactly.
The very first thing I'd want to try.
Yeah.
He had anger issues and the concentration, all the things that you would lump an ADD child into that I know as a cannabis activist that would be beneficial for him.
Oh, absolutely.
And nowhere near as harmful.
Yes.
But that's part of what we're working on in this next legislative session.
My granddaughter is autistic, and we want to be sure that before we try a Risperidone or a Abilify, and all of those have black box suicide warning
Yes.
labels on them, that we can actually try cannabis and CBD first.
Mhm.
You know, it should be a first option, not a last option. And part of the reason that I let parents know that this is still kind of illegal to do is because that way they're not carrying it around in their car. They're not walking up to their doctors going, I'm giving my kid CBD. That way, if you choose to help your child or to see if it works and to try it, you know you have a risk to mitigate. And you can't mitigate a risk if people are going, oh, it's legal everywhere. Okay, go to South Dakota where you're going to be arrested for it.
Or Ohio.
Or, and Idaho.
Idaho.
Yep.
You're the last potato, Idaho.
I know. And they're trying. You know, the Idaho Cannabis Coalition has a medical program petition out to see if they can get it on the ballot. But
We should get them on the show.
Well, and I would love to. And I have hopes because, you know, Idaho is Mormon country.
Mm-hmm.
What Utah has just done. And I'm related to a lot of Mormons. I was raised in the religion, and what is happening is they do use a lot of plant medicine. The reason I can't drink tea is because they use tea as medicinally. And go natural first is one of the things, and eat well is one of the things. And so they have all of these wonderful eating healthy-minded mothers that were brought up, and they're going, look, I have a child with autism.
Yes.
Or I have a child with epilepsy.
Yep.
Or I have a child. And so their own congregations are rising up and going, hey, it says in scriptures all over the place about seeds and medicines and what have you. Why is this wrong? This isn't wrong. I'm not upset about Idaho. I think Idaho has more possibility than people are giving them credit
I think
for.
so. I think really ultimately we're going to win. And
that's not saying they're in a bunch of ignorant people that are pushing
because
back.
there's a lot of that even here in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
We have to deal with a whole slew of ignorant people pushing back, you know, and still perpetuating myths that might have been true 30 years ago, like, oh, the products aren't tested or we don't have dosing. And I can actually dose to the milligram the products, and I can look at the testing and I can see what's going on with the products. You know, it's there's a lot of ignorance, but I think Idaho and South Dakota are really going to push it, and I think they're going to do good. So for sure.
Rooting for you.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So the fifth surprising thing that you learned is that cannabidiol is psychoactive.
Yes, it is psychoactive.
Define what you mean by psychoactive.
How could you say such a thing?
I know.
It doesn't get you high. Why are you saying that?
I know. It's horrible. Just take my mouth up there and tie me up and throw me in the back. CBD is psychoactive. It can alter your mood. It can alter your state of being. It interacts with your brain in maybe indirect ways, but it does interact with your brain. That's why it works for seizures. That's why it works for neurological disorders. That's why it works for a lot of things, for anxiety. Yes. So by saying CBD is not psychoactive, you're basically saying it's a placebo. It is not inebriating. It is not intoxicating. You're not gonna.
It won't get you high.
Yeah, it's not gonna get you high.
Be psychoactive.
Yes.
That's why everybody uses this stuff.
Exactly. It's psychoactive because it works.
Right.
And it interacts with the brain, and that's the biggest thing. One of the bigger things that I see is everybody's, oh, it's not psychoactive, and I'm like, yeah, it is. It's just not intoxicating. So, and there's a big difference there.
Now let's really bust some bubbles. What else that we can compare it to that is psychoactive, over-the-counter, legal? Caffeine. So coffee would be one. Benadryl's another one.
Just walk through your pharmacy and pick up anything.
Coca-Cola, Diet Coca-Cola.
Right.
All of that's going to be more psychoactive than
energy
CBD.
drinks. Any of those things.
Beer.
Yes.
Now that's
Slushies.
intoxicating.
Sugar.
Oh, that's right.
Sugar.
Grapes.
Especially
Raisins.
Fermented grapes.
Black olives.
Cashews.
Yep.
Nutmeg. Trust me.
Yes. Yes. There are so many things that are actually intoxicating that we have the ability to walk into any pharmacy and just pick up and walk out with, and no one bats an eye. You know, if I'm carrying around a BC powder or a Goodies powder, it's got aspirin, it's got ibuprofen, it's got caffeine, and it's got, you know, some other stuff in it, and that definitely affects your brain.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, woo, okay, that's enough caffeine.
BC had
Yep.
another NASCAR sponsor right there of the Richard Petty 43 car.
Yep.
Yeah, and Goodies, right?
Yep.
BC
Goodies.
and Goodies headache powders.
Yep.
And they're powders, and they have those ingredients to where they work faster and stronger.
Yes.
You know,
On a migraine,
Pretty psychoactive.
which is
I don't see what the deal is,
affecting
NASCAR.
your brain function.
Yeah.
Yeah. So CBD is psychoactive. Very much so is it psychoactive, and it's such a disservice when people are like, oh, it's not psychoactive, and they're interchanging the word psychoactive and intoxicating, and those two words are not interchangeable. Just like CBD and hemp are not interchangeable. You know, hemp is not CBD. CBD comes from hemp, but they're not interchangeable at all. You can't say, oh, if this applies to hemp, well, this must apply to CBD. And that's a lot of, some of the confusion is the Farm Bill did make hemp an agricultural commodity, but CBD is still kind of in the limbo there.
Yeah.
It didn't actually free CBD. It had that wonderful deschedule clause right up front, but then down in the little fine print in this little tiny paragraph that's indented, like extra small, it says, oh, but if it had been studied, it's part of the FD&C clause. And
how about CBG? Let's go.
I know,
I'll go start CBG companies, y'all.
I'm waiting for CBG to kind of get its heyday.
It's happening this fall.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know, unless their crop failed, I know somebody that's growing a bunch of high CBG.
Yes.
Now, for people who have no idea what CBG is,
Cannabigerol.
Yeah.
It's the precursor to both THC and CBD.
Yep. Highly anti-inflammatory. Highly anti-inflammatory. I use helichrysum in a lot of the topicals that I have when I make them, because it has a compound like CBG. It's not CBG, but it's like CBG, and it is amazing for pain relief and for inflammation. So I'm excited to see more CBG come into the market, because I'd like to have more access to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that it's in there, we can go to our southern states where we swell up like watermelons.
Oh yeah.
And have that.
Can you tell us more about Canna-Patient Resource Connection?
Yes. What we do is years and years and years ago, the municipality that I live in, which is Colorado Springs, they decided they were going to impede on A20, Amendment 20, and take away our cultivation rights to cultivate whatever a doctor tells us that we need, or whatever we decide that we need for good health. And at that point, we were born. And I realized we did a needs assessment for like 6 months. We went and we watched who was doing what things needed to be done, where was the gap. And we found it in education. The general public was being completely ignored by our camp, though it wasn't being ignored by the prohibitionists. And so you would see news story, and then all of this education that, you know, the marijuana tax money is paying for. It's almost like DARE program, and it's just DARE revisited. And so I realized that we had a huge gap when it came to basic education, and there were a lot of myths, and there's a lot of propaganda out there about cannabis as well. There's a lot of very utopic thought, and that wasn't helping us at that point because it wasn't accurate. And so we started designing education. We started getting out there. We got in with Colorado Springs to try to help explain to them what a patient needs. And so now what we've done is we've created all of this education to where we have, you know, a slideshow, we have a teacher's guide, we have handouts, and we have social media graphics so that it all can work synergistically together, so that anybody can pick up one of the content bundles and run with it and go take it to, you know, their HOAs, their VFWs, American Legions, their elected officials. They can go do these presentations there, and all they have to do is just read, you know, and after a while, like, you practice and you get good at it. But then we also found that there was a huge need as far as the cannabis community actually participating in charity. That was almost non-existent. when all of this happened in Colorado Springs, we went to our local dispensaries, and out of I think 136 at the time, we had 5 that were actually patient friendly at the time, and some of those have actually dropped off since then. So we have even less. And nobody was participating in any type of charity. Nobody was giving back to the local community. It was all about how much money I can make, how much publicity, and it was all very recreational in style. And so we started our medical supply cabinet, and we do help patients out, sometimes financially, like with groceries, or if they need something extra, we do that as well. So our local families get a lot of support as far as, we have pediatric wheelchairs and strollers and feeding tube supplies and food and just different things. So we do a lot of that as well. And then, we advocate. And that's the other thing that we do is we go up to the Capitol, and we found that El Paso County patients were not being represented at all, and really patients weren't being represented at all. It was a certain kind of patient was being represented, and when you got into the moderate and severe patients, we were ignored by all of the other patients, the mild patients, if you will, and so we needed that representation. And so I go up there because I am a severe patient, and it's very obvious. You look at my hands, and I'm hunched over like this, or I'm in a meeting and I can't breathe, and I can't walk very well. But they need to see it. They need to see that's what it is, and the mild patients need to see that this is not about getting high for us. This is not about how high this brownie is going to get me. This is how functional can I be, because I can take an Ambien and get high. I don't need a pot brownie to get high. So I want to be functional. And so we found that the mild patients who didn't have the severe needs were very willing to negotiate our rights away for whatever reason that they were doing it.
Right.
And that had to stop. And so that's kind of how we were born in this chaotic explosion of things.
Protect home grows.
Yes. Yeah, that's our biggest thing. You don't have access unless you have cultivation.
Yep.
Not at all. This stuff grows for pennies in my backyard. Why should I have to pay for an Epidiolex prescription? Or why should I have to go into a dispensary who is not, even if I sign over my plants to them, they're not going to keep the strains I want. They're not going to grow them how I want them to. They're not going to guarantee that this is going to be in stock for me when I need it. And what if I want CBG? I have to harvest, 3 weeks into flowering. No dispensary is going to do it. I also use raw cannabis. So I use the Papa Bob's raw stuff he makes it special for me. And having access to that, you have to have cultivation. That's raw cannabis. No dispensaries sell that whatsoever.
No, I need to get with you on that too.
Yes.
We had Dr. Getty on, and that was one of the things that she emphasized is the different health benefits of eating it raw and putting it in a smoothie, and how your body uses it differently, and the importance of THCA.
Yeah, THCA, CBGA, CBDA, all of these acid forms are very beneficial, and they work very synergistically in a lot of amazing ways, and they're just now starting to be studied. But one of the bigger study areas is autoimmune diseases, and that's part of what I have are autoimmune diseases. And given I had a spinal cord injury on my neck a couple years ago, and I've had a fusion, and those injuries don't go away because I had a very, very big compression. I would not be walking. I would not have done as well as I did without access to raw cannabis. And it's essential, and I can't find that in a dispensary. And it's not affordable in a dispensary. If you're a mild patient, it's affordable. If you're a severe patient, you're taking more cannabis in a day than most rec users would use in a month.
Right.
And it becomes very cost prohibitive.
Oh yeah. I pay basically a car note in cannabis every month.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why we need to be able to grow.
But it's also the reason I work 40+ hours and can volunteer and do what I do and walk my dog and
Canna-Patient Resource Connection runs on cultivation. It does. It runs on access to cultivation.
Yeah.
Because all of the volunteers, they have to be able to cultivate to function, to volunteer. And so we are very, very much a cannabis fueled organization.
Right.
Yes.
Right. and and if you want to go to the meetings in Colorado Springs, it's kind of funny. You with nonprofits, you meet you where you're at. I'm very involved, but this is my part.
Yeah.
This is, because I'm one of those patients that's a hard drive for me.
Yes. Yeah, just like coming up here it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm going to feel from day to day, and I missed 2 bill signings this year because I could not physically make it to the bill signing, and it was like, that's part of being a patient.
Yeah.
And so it's, no matter what your ability is, there is always something that you can do. You play your part, I do my part, you do your part, and all of it ends up working together. And it's a beautiful thing to watch.
It really is.
Yeah, it is.
Real quick, do you believe in Sasquatch?
I don't know.
You're down south. Go west a little bit. There's a lot of Sasquatch sightings around there.
Well, I know that
Upper Georgia,
Pikes Peak actually has a Sasquatch crossing sign.
Oh wow!
Going up to Pikes Peak. So.
Yeah. Well, we're about out of time. Thank you so much for making the trip up here. Is there anything that we've forgotten to say? We haven't said any domain names or anything yet.
The only thing that I would say is, if you want a trusted CBD product, I know Veedverks has it. And so if you are looking for CBD vape cartridges that aren't going to cause you issue, or you're looking for an amazing lotion that has a phenomenal terpene content to it along with your CBD, this is actually one of the few companies that I trust.
That's a very high compliment. Yeah,
and they also, if you would like to try Veedverks products and support Canna-Patient Resource, they have an affiliate code now.
We do.
And so when you see Veedverks being shared by them, the certain portion goes directly to them.
Yep.
And I will do my best to make sure Amelia is in the closet for our patients.
Oh yeah, this is one of the few companies that I highly recommend. I know that you guys are patient friendly. I see you up at the Capitol all the time, and you're up at the Capitol all the time, and we're all advocating for the same thing. And that, to me, is an upstanding company. So
we appreciate that, and this show is for patients.
Yes.
For the ones that aren't in Colorado, and sharing the knowledge, because we have amazing people like you, and we have these researchers and industry leaders on that are able to give real answers and take that conversation to the next level and go a little deeper.
Yeah.
So appreciate that.
Bridgett, thank you so much for coming up.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Julie, for setting it up.
Always.
You explained it as soon as I read that article. Bridgett. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe. I heard they were going to get rid of likes on Facebook. That'll be interesting.
Oh, that'll be fun.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But, share it out.
Yep.
Spread the word. And as always, I'm Travis Lippert, reminding you, if you don't get hemp here, get hemp somewhere.